Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today it is my birthday. I have made it to 40 and so I decided to do something a little bit different today, and I thought that it would be fun to go out and do some plein air painting. This is something that I've wanted to do for ages and I always kind of put it off because it seems like it's a lot of effort and I don't really have time, but today I decided to make time. And so I decided to have a go at plein air painting, which is something I have done a bit in the past, but not for ages, and I must admit, not very well. And even today, it was a bit of a failure, but that's okay. These things happen. So I decided that I was going to do this at probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd been out shopping most of the morning and I sort of decided last minute that it was a really nice day. It was beautiful and sunny, and I thought, hey, I've got nothing else to do. It's my birthday, so why don't I go and do some painting on location somewhere just for fun. So I didn't really leave until 1:30, 2 o'clock, so it was already quite late into the afternoon, so I didn't have a lot of time before my light was going to totally disappear. So I kind of just chucked everything in the car and just drove somewhere locally, and I totally forgot to bring a mount for my phone, which is what I'm using to film. So the filming part of it didn't really work out so well. I was hoping to get all these beautiful shots of me painting in the landscape, and I didn't have anywhere to prop my phone up because I didn't bring a phone holder. So I kind of had to just make do with holding it up every now and then and resting it on the ground. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to do some painting with my oil paints. This is actually the water mixable oils by Winsor & Newton. I really like using these, and I find that they're so much easier than regular oil paint because you can wash up in water and you don't have a lot of smell from terps and solvents and things. So I thought that'd be a lot easier. And I'm just painting on a timber panel that I've given a quick coat of just pale pink acrylic paint to give it a bit of a base. And this easel is a Maybeth easel, and it's a really great travel easel. It sort of folds up and packs away, and it's really light to carry around as well. So that's what I'm using as my easel. And I decided that I was going to paint this beautiful scene in a local area, and I was really excited to start with, but I quickly realised that it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought, and that the scene was probably a little bit complicated for my abilities in regard to plein air painting. It's, I don't know, it was where do I begin? I made it difficult for myself because where I set myself up, I was facing into the sun, so this scene was backlit. And I really liked the light in the scene. It was beautiful, but it was a real challenge to actually paint it because my easel was in shadow, so I couldn't really see the colours that I was mixing up very well because the sun kept going in my eyes and I couldn't see. And it was really hard to sort of judge the darks, the lights. And yeah, it was just, I kind of even when I started, I just totally messed it up. I should have focused on the darks and then worked my way to the lights. And for some reason, I just kind of panicked and started throwing colour down everywhere. So it didn't really work. I kind of forget when I switch to oil paint that I can't really use the same technique as what I do with my acrylic painting. So acrylic painting, this is how I would start. I would just block in random colours everywhere. Whereas oil painting, you sort of need to think about it a little bit more because the colours sort of blend with each other, and if you put the wrong colour underneath, it's going to make it really hard to then change it later on, and the colours underneath get really muddy with the colours on top. So you kind of have to think about it a bit more, and I didn't really do that. I just kind of jumped into it thinking, oh, I'll just fix it up as I go, and the colours weren't really working, and I found it really hard. Again, the position that I was in, I was facing the light, and the easel and the painting was in shadow to me, even though it doesn't look like it in this shot. It actually was in really, really deep shadow. So I couldn't see the colours properly, and I couldn't see what I was doing properly, and yeah, it ended up being a bit of a mess. But this is where I sort of the stage I got to where I realised that I probably chose the wrong location. I also found that I put a little bit too much emphasis on all the trees in the background, and they looked really busy. Like, it was a really busy scene. And while the reason why I chose it is because I really loved the bright green grass that the sun was reflecting on. And for some reason, again, because of the colours that I put down first, I just couldn't get that really bright, vivid colour that I was looking for. And yeah, so I kind of just fluffed around with it for a little while. Like, this painting, it took probably about, I think I was only there for maybe 40 minutes. It was a really quick sort of slap down the colour painting, which is what I was planning on doing. But yeah, it wasn't as successful as I sort of hoped it would be. But, you know, plein air painting, it's not really what I do, and oil painting isn't really my most favourite medium either. So I kind of threw myself in the deep end and gave myself a really big challenge, and I kind of got a bit frustrated with myself. But at this stage, I sort of thought, you know, well, I may as well just paint until I'm happy with it to a certain point. And I even tempted to sort of not even show anybody this because I really didn't like it. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to show people that everyone makes mistakes, and not everything that I paint is an absolute masterpiece straight off the bat. So I ended up just pushing through, and this is kind of what it ends up looking like. Again, it's really hard to photograph it and to film it properly because of the position that I was in. The light was really hard because you can see it's like coming from behind, and kept shining in my face and I couldn't see, and I couldn't film properly either. But the scene was beautiful, and I actually took heaps of photos of that scene. So I'm hoping that with the photos, I might be able to attempt it again because I won't have the sun in my face. But this is kind of what it looked like at the end, and I felt as though it was just really busy, and there wasn't really much definition and distance in it from what I wanted. So you can see the hills and the trees in the mid-ground, and there's trees and lots of light in the foreground. I felt like I didn't quite capture that the way I wanted to. So this is what it looked like in the end. And I decided to just call it quits at this point and pack up. And I also wiped off this painting. And before you all yell at me, it's okay to do this. If you're not happy with what you've done and, you know, it's just not working for whatever reason, don't be afraid to just let it go. You know, don't be attached to every single artwork that you create, because they're not always meant to be artworks that are kept and put on the wall. Anyway, I decided to evaluate what I was doing and change my location. And I chose this location, which by this stage it was already about 3:30, and so it was getting quite dark. Like, the sun had already kind of gone behind the hills, and the light was really starting to disappear. So I had to work really quickly with this one, but I really liked the way that the trees were contrasting against the shrubs and things in the background, and I thought that it would be much easier to capture that. And so I started this painting in the way that I probably should have started the other painting, and that is by focusing on the darks and blocking in all the dark areas and then working my way to the light areas. So again, I couldn't film, yeah, that's when I dropped the camera. I couldn't film while I was painting because I didn't have a camera, you know, a tripod to hold my camera, so I kind of just had to pick it up here and there. But you can see I sort of started with the darker blue shadow areas, and then I went to the trees, which had like a really nice light contrast to them. And I was much happier with this painting. It still, you know, wasn't really fantastic, but I think that it was a lot better than the last one. I think it had a lot more potential than the last one. So you can see that I'm slowly building up the layers of colour, and I was much happier with this one. I think it was a lot more successful, even though the lighting was a bit boring. But I did learn a few lessons, and that's the most important thing. The first lesson I learnt was that you need to think a little bit about where you're going to be standing before you start painting. And just because something looks really nice doesn't mean it's going to be the greatest location to actually paint in. And, you know, yeah, this one I was happier with, but at the same time I had to really boost up the contrast and boost up the colours, because by this stage it was getting quite dark. I finished this painting at about 4 o'clock, so it took me about an hour, and being winter and, you know, where I am in Australia, it gets pretty dark here by about 5 o'clock. So I was definitely losing light by this stage, and so I kind of rushed and tried to get most of it done. And yeah, I was much happier with this one. So all in all, it was an interesting experience, and I think next time I'll make sure that I prepare a little bit more. Like I said, this was a very spontaneous last-minute decision to, hey, I'm going to go and do some plein air painting. Whereas next time I think I'll put a little bit more planning into it and think a little bit more about where I want to go and give myself more time, because I felt like I was a little bit rushed, only having a few hours in the afternoon. But anyway, this is what it looks like, and that was how I spent my birthday. And I hope you enjoyed looking at that. And if you have any plein air tips, let me know in the comments, because clearly I'm pretty clueless. Bye.